It began subtly, with a sound too faint to demand his attention but too perfectly timed to ignore for long, a rhythm that did not echo his steps in the usual way, did not blur with his own movement, but rather waited, measured, and followed, always with the precision of exactly one step behind, as if someone had memorized the tempo of his walk and chose to remain close enough to be felt but never quite seen. At first he assumed it was the acoustics of the stairwell near his apartment, the way certain angles repeat sound more cleanly than others, or the hollow slap of his own shoes against concrete reverberating strangely on late, empty sidewalks, but the more he listened, the more he realized the sound didn't mirror his footsteps, it answered them. No matter how fast or slow he moved, no matter the surface beneath his feet, tile, stone, asphalt, wood, the other step arrived always just after his, not overlapping, not trailing far behind, but precisely delayed by a breath, as if it belonged to someone walking invisibly through his wake. When he stopped suddenly, the sound stopped too. When he turned, quickly or slowly, casually or with forced indifference, there was never anyone there. No shifting shadows, no retreating figure at the edge of vision, no stray dog or clicking branch, only silence, but a silence that now felt like a shape pressing gently against his back. He tried rationalizing it, blamed old pipes, distant traffic, the way buildings settle, even his own heartbeat distorted by tension, but the timing was always too exact, the sound too crisp, the pattern too committed. Over time, it became routine. Not an incident, not an interruption, but a part of his daily experience, woven into the rhythm of every solitary return home, every empty hallway, every narrow corridor, until he found himself anticipating it, not with fear, exactly, but with a slow, tightening awareness that he was not alone in the mechanical sense, but accompanied in a way that had nothing to do with bodies and everything to do with presence. Even in familiar places, places where he had walked 100 times before, the alley beside the grocery store, the gravel path behind the old library, the short flight of stairs leading to his own door, the rhythm remained consistent, his footfall, and then the other, never rushing, never faltering, never claiming space but always occupying time, like a second hand ticking just behind his own pulse. It did not change when he altered his path, did not break when he walked in erratic patterns or paused mid-step or took 3 strides and spun in place. It was not reactive in that way, but patient, adaptive, and disturbingly calm. He avoided mentioning it to anyone, not because he feared ridicule, but because part of him had already accepted that there was no language simple enough to describe a thing that existed solely in the precise distance between action and imitation, between noise and echo, between solitude and being watched, and more than that, he sensed that naming it might transform it, might sharpen its focus, might encourage it to do something more than follow. He no longer tried to outrun it, not because he had given up, but because at some point the illusion of control began to seem childish, as though the effort to elude something that had never stumbled, never hesitated, never rushed, only made him more aware of how closely it had learned his habits, how precisely it measured his hesitations, how silently it adjusted to every deviation with a patience that didn't resemble human attention but something deeper, slower, and infinitely more constant. The sound was always the same, one step behind, never two, never more, never skipping or advancing or faltering, just there, as if stitched into the fabric of his motion, a rhythm that didn't echo but complemented, didn't chase but mirrored, and the more he tried to ignore it, the more acutely he noticed its consistency, its confidence, its calm. At first, the awareness was confined to walking, to physical movement through space, corridors, sidewalks, stairwells, but soon it began to extend itself into moments that should have been still, standing in the shower, motionless, hearing a faint shift of weight behind the door, brushing his teeth, catching the sound of a floorboard creaking behind his own reflection, waking in the middle of the night with the distinct feeling that someone had just taken one slow, deliberate step across the room, stopping the instant he opened his eyes. He searched for explanations he no longer believed, houses settling, vibrations from neighboring units, his own body misfiring under stress, but nothing he told himself carried weight anymore, because the presence didn't behave like noise or coincidence or imagination, it behaved like something listening. He began avoiding silence, not because he feared what it would reveal, but because silence had become a place the sound could enter more easily, and so he kept the radio on low, kept water running, left the fan spinning in the corner even when the room grew cold, created a hum around himself at all times, hoping that the consistency of artificial sound might disrupt the rhythm, but it didn't. The step returned each time, layered beneath whatever noise he added, never louder, never competing, simply present, a second layer beneath the first, like breath beneath speech, like pulse beneath thought. One night, when sleep finally took him for a few scattered hours, he dreamed of walking through an endless hallway, the walls narrowing with every turn, the lights flickering behind him, and each time he placed his foot down, he heard not one, but two steps behind him, perfectly synchronized but no longer delayed, a shadow no longer echoing, but merging. He woke drenched in sweat, heart unhurried but cold, and for a moment he thought the sound was still part of the dream, until he realized it hadn't stopped when he opened his eyes. Somewhere in the apartment, there was movement, not chaotic, not aggressive, but exact, like someone retracing his path from room to room with perfect memory, pausing only when he stood completely still.